Today we're going to talk about this. It's the new AeroPress Clear, a new brewer from AeroPress, which in itself feels kind of noteworthy. This is a company been around a couple of decades now that hasn't released many new products, so a new thing. But more importantly, I think it's indicative of changes coming to AeroPress, and I think those are also worth talking about. Now, quick history of this. The original AeroPress itself was clear, but that had some issues, and those materials used had some issues, and over time they changed the materials and it became more and more and more opaque, and people missed the cool clear thing. And so this came along. New materials, it's made out of Triton, and that should solve the problems that they had with previous materials, and it's now available. It's a bit more expensive than the original AeroPress. That's gone up to about $40, and this is $50. Now, historically, the AeroPress was such an easy recommendation to make. It was this kind of cheap, often under $30 brewer that you could just say, hey, it's like 30 bucks. You'd probably have a good time. It was cheap, it was portable, it was lightweight, it made lovely coffee, it was easy to use, easy to clean. It was a whole thing. And very, very successful. Incredibly successful, no doubt. There's got to be millions of AeroPresses out there in the world. But over the last few years, it has gotten more expensive. And again, everything's gotten more expensive recently. So I'm not really having a go at the AeroPress for now being $40 and not, $30, $32, which is the average price over the last decade on Amazon. Things have gotten more expensive. But there has been change within AeroPress in the last couple of years that's worth talking about. Now, if you don't know the history of AeroPress, there's a video. Actually, we made a whole series about the AeroPress because we do love this brewer on this channel. You can click it up here in the description down below. Kind of covers a bit of the history, but it was founded by a guy called Alan Adler. He created Aerobie, the delightful flying rings, and then he made a coffee maker because that's what you do, I guess. And it was born out of his very strong opinions about how coffee should be, how it should taste, how it should be made. Opinions, honestly, I didn't always agree with, but I enjoyed that he had them. Anyway, 2021, Alan, I think looking for an exit for his company, took an investment from a company called Tiny Capital based out of Canada, I think. And it seems that there's kind of new management within AeroPress these days. There's a new CEO, and they're making new products. And I think that's interesting. Now, this thing at $50 is kind of nice. It doesn't necessarily feel more premium than the previous AeroPress. In fact, if we take this apart for a second, one thing I did notice on all the ones I've bought, and I bought a few for reasons I will explain, is that I presume as a result of the manufacturing process, at the top of the cylinder here and on the other side here, these two little marks that leave kind of little clouding blemishes around here with, and you don't have these on the original AeroPress. It just, as you sort of touch them, it just feels like something's gone wrong or it's been chipped. They're not smooth. It's kind of weird. Other than that, though, doesn't it look nice? Doesn't it look nice? Nice and clear. We'll brew some coffee with it in a minute. But most people probably have the same question, which is my brewer going to get covered in coffee stain over time? That's a good question. First thing I wondered too, like, well, it looks nice now. What about a year from now? And so we thought we should do a little experiment. So we bought a couple of other AeroPresses and we brewed a very long brew, because I figured if you brewed a 2-minute brew every day for a year, that's 700 and some minutes. It's about 12 hours. We let a brew just sit in here for about 20 hours. And well, do you want to see what happened? Absolutely nothing at all, right? Like, absolutely fine. There's no visible staining, I would say. There's no visible differences between these two. This has had 20 hours of coffee contact. You might say, well, hang on. What about temperature? You make a good point, because this obviously was hot for a little bit and then declined, and it was like a 23-hour cold brew with an hour of hot to warm. So we took another brewer and we kind of sealed both ends of it, brewed some coffee, and then stuck it in a sous vide kind of situation with a water circulator, held at 90 degrees Celsius for those same 20 hours. Let's have a look at that one. Again, no real staining, though, well, it looks like there has been some damage. Firstly, I used a cling film or saran wrap or whatever you call it, and wherever you are, a PVC film. It has adhered to this in a way that's made it kind of weird and kind of gross, so don't judge the discoloration around the top here for that. We'll show you some close-up so you can really see. I can see, interestingly, a couple of little cracks almost in here, little like hairline kind of marks, and I don't know where those have come from, whether that's a heat stress thing, I don't know. Afterwards, after I've talked about them, we will do a drop test, And in fact, I'll show you the drop test now. I'll drop it in and you can see whether this is a more fragile material than the original, though you are unlikely to drop it off a roof to see what happens. Drop test 1, I'm gonna go for like this height. Drop test 2, I guess about 3 meters. And now for the unrealistically high drop test of about, I guess, 6-7 meters. Here we go. Fatality. So I think fair to say that I have zero concerns about the durability of this new material. I do think it is worth noting what you get in the box though. Now, side note really, the box historically for the AeroPress was, and I say this with love, gloriously terrible. Like it was not a good box. The design did not speak to me. The new box is like the old box, but sort of more boring, which feels like a shame. It's a bit smaller because there's less stuff in it actually, which is sort of worth noting, because inside you get your stirrer, your lovely AeroPress stirrer. I don't know if people use these. It's sort of, you know, it's a piece of plastic. You get your scoop. It's well known how I feel about scoops. And you get some paper filters. Now, if you've bought an AeroPress in the last decade or more, you might notice a small difference here. This is a little shrink wrap of 100 paper filters. The old AeroPress came with one of these. It was a filter holder, and it also came with 350 paper filters. And that was a really nice thing. You were set up for almost a year of brewing if you wanted to be. And it felt generous, and it was still this brewer that was under $30. You know, paper doesn't cost very much to make a small disc of paper like this. And so this drop in paper filters felt like a weird little red flag to me. And maybe I'm reading too much into this, right? But for me, it sort of made me a little bit sad. Not just because it came wedged inside the sort of filter cap and it was quite difficult to get it out, and that was a maddening experience. But they didn't really need to drop the number of papers you get unless they're trying to squeeze some more margin out of this thing here. And there's not much margin to be squeezed out of reducing 250 paper filters. Generously, if they cost a cent each, which if they cost a cent each, that's surprising. That's $2.50. You've gone from what was a $30 product up to a $40 product, now to a $50 product. What bothers me more though, if I'm getting fussy about this, is that on the website they don't tell you there's been a change, and the paper filters in the product shot are shot top down so you can't tell how tall the stack is. And it made me think, oh, what does new ownership mean for the future of the AeroPress? As I said, Alan had very strong opinions, right? Alan had a force of opinion that was tremendous and laudable, even if I strongly disagreed with them. He felt very deeply passionate about brewing coffee at 80 degrees Celsius. I don't feel that way. He was a real big advocate of paper filtering coffee for health and flavor reasons. And he didn't make new products. Like, people wanted a bigger AeroPress. He said no. The only other product AeroPress made under his sort of tenure was the AeroPress Go, which was the same thing but slightly smaller in a cup for easier transport. New ownership has kind of brought forth a kind of wave of new products. Now, this is one of the first ones here. So it is a more expensive AeroPress and a kind of premium looking one, though I will say it doesn't feel any different, or even maybe feels slightly worse because of that manufacturing issue than the original. This is our original, and in comparison, yes, you can't see what's going on inside. Pretty boring, pretty interesting, pretty boring. I get it, I totally get it. They've also come out with this. This is the AeroPress Flow Control Filter Cap. Now, I'm not going to review it today, but I am going to compare it just quickly to this, which is the Fellow Prismo. So you see it in the middle. This is like a silicone piece here that if you apply pressure, it will open the hole in the middle of it. Otherwise, it will be tight enough to seal it and nothing will drip out of the bottom. This is $25, or $24.95, sorry. And this Fellow product is $25. Though I will say the Fellow one comes with the cap, which works in a very similar way, as well as a metal filter here. AeroPress do now sell a metal filter, but that's an additional $15 on top of it. So in a value comparison, I'm not sure really where they're pitching this in compared to this. Materials-wise, it doesn't feel any better, and design-wise, I think it looks a little bit worse. It's just the pricing really was the notable thing to me. there. Again, it feels like there's a search for products with higher margins and higher price points going on. And as we look at the future of AeroPress, well, that's interesting, right? Because there's two more notable products coming down the line. The first is the AeroPress XL, something that people had been asking Alan for years and years and years. And he'd always said no. He'd tried it, he had prototypes, he didn't like results. Now it seems they've cracked it. So the word is it's twice the volume of the existing AeroPress. That'll change some of the physics of pressing it. That's just worth noting now. Whether they make it wider or taller or a combination of those things, I don't really know. You can see pictures of it, but without dimensions, I don't really know how it's going to be different. Someone could probably do the maths on images and work it out, but I'm not going to do that right now. And then the other product that I think is kind of notable is a kind of premium AeroPress that's coming that I think is kind of interesting. This is made out of glass and metal. I'm not sure those are materials that I really want in a brewer that people often like to do an inverted method with, which is dangerous enough with a plastic one, let alone shatterable hot things like glass and metal. But I get it. I think they've looked at the market and they've had this brewer that's been very popular, but it's been relatively low in price point. And they're like, well, what would people like that's at a higher price point? And a premium AeroPress, well, that sounds kind of nice. I feel like this is kind of aiming as squarely at that market as is possible. I don't think many people are looking to spend $100 on an AeroPress. And you know, that doesn't really fit with the community around it that kind of fell in love with it. It spread it through word of mouth because it was an accessible brewer that made great coffee if you wanted it to. It was hugely flexible. There's a million different ways you could brew it. Of course, if you want to know how I would brew it, there's a link in the description down below to the ultimate AeroPress technique, and you can even see a video on how we worked out all of the tests to get there. Now, I did say I'd brew some coffee with it, and so to wrap up, I guess let's make a brew. A couple of other things to note quickly as I'm brewing. One, the whole pattern has changed compared to the original. Don't know what that means yet. Secondly, and actually I feel a bit sad about this, even though it's slightly ridiculous as a product, the funnel's gone. I hadn't realized actually till now, I should have realized, the AeroPress Clear does not come with the hilarious funnel that I'm going to use to put my coffee in, even though I don't need to, but I thought it was worth mentioning. So no one of these, no paper holder anymore. I guess there could be like nice, I don't know, copper made or stainless steel filter holders coming down the line that are a bit more expensive as a kind of premium add-on. I don't know. Maybe they just don't think they're necessary anymore. Let's have a look at you. You can see a nice crust forming there. After a couple of minutes, we will be swirling this to knock that crust down, waiting a little bit before we press. You can see that knocks down the crust, everything starts to fall to the bottom, and you can see it now. See it happening in real time, because this is clear. No pressing on the scale. They don't like it. There we have it. Looks nice and clean afterwards. That is satisfying, actually, that as you press it, it kind of cleans it down. That does look good. I approve. I guess this comes down to two things. One, if you've got an AeroPress and you're thinking about upgrading it, is this a worthwhile upgrade? For $50 over what you have now, I'm not sure that's a great investment. It doesn't make a coffee taste any different. It looks nicer, but I'm not sure that's it. If I was in the market for an AeroPress from the beginning, if I'm confident I'm going to enjoy that kind of thing, if I've got a couple brewers already, yeah, I might be tempted to go for the clear one. It does look nicer. It is kind of prettier. I don't really worry about it accumulating staining over time based on the tests we've done today. By the way, this is not a manufacturer's guarantee. This is just the testing we've done today. So I would be tempted by it, but you know, if the original's out there and you see it for less than $40, I think that's a great buy. I think it's one of the best investments you can make for the money in your coffee gear, in your kind of coffee brewing collection. It makes great coffee. This makes great coffee, but it doesn't make better coffee. So nice, fun, but I think an interesting signpost for the future of AeroPress. Now, I want to hear from you down in the comments below. Have you got one of these? How's your experience been so far? Are you thinking about getting one? Are you holding out for the premium? I'm sure a lot of you are holding out for the XL. So as soon as I have my hands on one of those, we'll brew with it and we'll see what we get out of it, because I think that's been something the audience has definitely wanted. It's been a limitation of the brewer, but will it be good? We'll find out. But I'd love to hear your thoughts on this down in the comments below. For now, I'll say thank you so much for watching. Hope you have a great day.